listener production.
The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
The following episode of TOFOP is rated MA for mature audiences. It may contain sexual references, time travel references, allegations of bin misconduct, and mild coarse language. TOFOP advises that this episode is not suitable for anyone under the age of 15 or anyone who thinks a comedy conversation between two old mates sounds like a terrible idea for a show. Minors must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. This is John Deek speaking.
Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello and thank you for watching.
That was my 60 Minutes intro. I'm Charlie Clausen, bringing you an exclusive story about how a 45-year-old man has had a sprained finger for 2 weeks. Doing what, you might ask? Something X-Gamesy? Riding his mountain bike? Lifting weights? No, Will. I tried to put a cover on a cushion and I sprained my finger and it still hasn't recovered.
Which finger are we talking about here? Like
my ring finger on my non-dominant right hand.
Okay, so on your right hand, your ring finger on your right hand. Okay, so but not the finger you wear a ring on. Yeah, that one there, and you've sprained it. Like in what act? Like is it putting the cushion back in and trying to zip it up? Is that the moment where it got sprained? Like what exact thing were you doing with this cushion?
There are moments, Will, in which I think that I have grown and learnt and, you know, my knowledge base has expanded. And then there's other moments where I'm like, how can you still be doing dumb shit like this? So this time of the year in the Northern Rivers, it gets a bit humid and it's mold season. And so the last 2 years I've been, you know, I've had to deal with mold outbreaks. And so this year I was determined, I'm going to minimize the mold impact. It's coming. But I'm going to be running the dehumidifiers as much as I can. First sign of any mold anywhere, I'm going to be cleaning that shit.
It was, you know what the original draft of M. Night Shyamalan's Old was? It was actually a beach where people get mold. It was set in Byron Bay. That was the first draft. And somebody was like, this is pretty good, M. Night, but what if they got old instead of mold?
Well, I just started watching The Last of Us, and that is like living in the Northern Rivers, just fucking people just contaminated by mold. And it is fucking gross. Like, it's disgusting when you find that mold outbreak. And then it's weird. It's sort of like a horror movie where you'll go in and you'll go, oh, what's that? There's a bit of fuzz on the wooden handle of this whatever. And then you'll turn your head and you'll see that, oh my God, like everywhere where there's organic material is covered in green and black shit. It's disgusting. Jackets, shirts, fucking everything. Can't leave food out, Will. Oh, you left a bit of food on that T-shirt and you left it overnight? Well, guess what? There's a forest growing on it now.
You've had a visit from Mouldilocks. She's come in during the night. She's gone room to room and she's spread her mold all over the joint.
Mouldilocks is just this like decomposing, like Victorian era girl. Like the blonde ringlets are all like tattered. She's wearing like a pinafore that's just got its broken holes ripped in it. You can see her ribs, just like green crumbling flesh.
You know how it's compulsory for every comedian in Australia to write a children's book. In fact, I believe I am the only comedian in Australia who hasn't written a children's book at this stage. Could Mouldilocks be my book? That feels like more than enough of an idea you need for a children's book. Like the rest of it kind of writes itself. Basically, it's a Goldilocks story, but like it's just a whole bunch of things about moldiness as well thrown in, and that's just
all these comedian authored books. They're all like so and so can't stop farting, so and so won't stop picking his nose. So-and-so pissed his pants. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's always like some bodily humor.
But
I
what
gotta
hasn't
say-
been used yet is mold. This is what I'm
Mold.
saying. Like, this is a good
Mouldilocks.
zone because it's close to those bodily functions, but it hasn't been mined for all its comedic potential at this stage. It's a bold move forward, or maybe a mold move forward.
It's a mold move forward. I don't know though if it has like like Iona loves a fart joke. One of her favorite things. There's a picture book we have which is like breaking down what the parts of an airplane, and here's the men loading the luggage into the cargo, and here's the pilots doing the instrument checks, and then there's a little gag on one of the pages where it's like, because it's a flap, open the flap book. And so you go into the back part of the plane and you open the toilet door and there's a kid sitting on the toilet with his pants around his ankles and he goes like, hey. And so every time we open that flap, I always make the sound of the kid going, hey. And Iona loves it. Like, we will stay on that page for 10 minutes where she'll just open and close the toilet door. To the point now, though, where I have been on the toilet and she's run up and thrown the door open and screamed out, hey, because she thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. But I don't know that mold.
Yeah, it has the same cut through as farts for children.
Yeah.
Farts are, I mean, I don't normally talk about this topic.
Having said that, if you tie the mold into something like, so Mouldilocks, like her teeth fall out, like her jaw dislodges, like and falls out the time, that I think she could find funny.
Well, also, like the idea of maybe that she's moldy is kind of like that she's rotting inside, right? So you can still have farts.
Yeah,
you can have rotten, like
just gas releases.
We don't need to rule out farts. Like there is a magic ingredient for these books. I think we can still have Mouldilocks farting away from room to room. I mean, if she's eating that much porridge, she's definitely going to let out a few farts rip at some stage.
Mouldilocks, you farted. No. That's literally just a decomposition of my internal organs, the gas released from those. It does have the odor and the sound of a fart, but in fact, it came through my ribcage.
Yeah, and you'll notice the spores going into your lungs and forming there. Oh, Mouldilocks.
Oh, Mouldilocks. So I was on high alert for the appearance of Mouldilocks, and I was in the backyard and I noticed some of our outdoor furniture had started to get some little speckles of mold. And so I'm like, fuck yes, here we go into action, and I jump online and I'm like, what's the best treatment for mold on outdoor furniture? And this one thing was like, okay, blast it with vinegar, then super hot wash, put a bit of bleach in if you want, and then dry it. So I'm like, okay, like dry it in the sun. So I'm like, okay, great. So I fucking hit it with the vinegar, and then I put it in the hot wash, bleach, I'm killing in my mind. And the mold's like, yo, I'm melting. And
I love that you're telling us this story like you're reading Iona, one of her bedtime stories.
Sorry, I'm parenting solo at the moment. I only have a 3-year-old to converse with most days.
You've brought a little of that into the podcast. You don't have to do all the noises.
Yeah, we can get Mike Williams, Mike III, to add those in later. So I did all the covers. Once I saw the mold at the back, I just grabbed all the outdoor furniture and was like, even if there was no sign of mold on it, I'm going to bloody take this shit out.
Yeah, get ahead of the game.
Really should have done my research. Because what I had done by putting it in the extremely hot wash is I had shrunk all the cushion covers.
Yeah, that'll
point
happen.
Where none of them fit. None of them fit anymore. And I was so mad at this random person who posted the first Google entry I looked at, which said put it in a hot wash. Like I really should have done or asked someone, just generally maybe double check with Jim. Hey, do you reckon I should put this? I just didn't think. And so I shrunk. Well, at first I refused to admit fault because we got all the cushions out. We dried them in the sun, the cushion covers, and then we started trying to and Jen was like struggling with one of the smaller ones. She's like, oh God, it's not normally this hard. We've got that one on and then another smaller one. But then we have this big oval bench seat, which is like a 2-person job. And it was like, I was wrangling this thing. And Jem's like, oh, you shrunk it. You've shrunk it. Did you put it on a hot wash? And I was like, yeah, but that's what the guy online said to do.
That's what the first entry I read about this on Google said to do.
Yeah, blast it. And the mold was like, and I was like, psh, and just like, stop doing the noises. You're not talking to Iona. So I was like, I got a bit of that kind of, male stubbornness where I refuse to admit. I said, that's not shrunk. I said, it's just a bit tight. We got the other ones on. We'll get this one on. And so, the process of trying to get it in is like one person squeezes the cushion filling shut, and then you're trying to edge the zip. I was edging the zipper of my cushion. It's the second time we've referenced edging with a podcast this week. I've got to expand my vocabulary a bit.
I mean, it's a very edgy podcast. Oh, sorry, edging. It's a very edging podcast. Some comedians go in an edgy direction. We've gone in an edging direction.
Very niche audience. So I'm edging the cushion, just bringing it real close to being done, but not quite, Will. I'm just edging that zipper.
I've got another idea for a children's book. Thomas the Tank Edgin. It's about a train that drives up to the tunnel, but never will go through the tunnel. Just when it gets to the tunnel, it stops.
He might stick his face just in the start of the tunnel, but then pull back.
And then,
maybe just gently nudge the tunnel.
Yeah, but then reverse.
Thomas the Tank Edgin. Okay. Voiced by Peter North. Okay. The fat controller is actually the PHAT fat controller. He's got plenty of junk in the trunk. So I'm edging the cushion, and Jem gives up. She's like, shrunk it. It's not going to work. And I said, it's going to. And so she leaves, and I'm determined there. I'm wrangling this thing like the crocodile hunter. I've got the cushion between my legs, and I'm squeezing the material shut, and I'm trying to push that zip up. And in an
you're pushing the cushion. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I was pushing the cushion. But in an effort to pull the material shut so I could get the zip, I hurt my finger, like I sprained my finger.
Yeah.
And it has been 2 weeks and it has not recovered. And it's not even it's my non-dominant hand. I'm a left-hander. But it's just like, it won't get better. I can't make a full fist with that finger.
Yeah. I mean, okay, but you did this to yourself, right? Every step in this, you did this to yourself.
100%. This is a story about, I remember you once mentioned that you pulled a neck muscle in your sleep, and that was when you realized that you were becoming an old man. I sprained my finger putting on a cushion cover, and I still haven't got the cushion cover on.
The fact that you got that many of the cushions in the cushion covers is actually remarkable in of itself, considering the fact that you shrunk the cushion covers in the first place. I'm surprised that you managed to get the rest of them in. I mean, this is actually a victory. Like that little, sore finger that you have is actually a reminder of the victory that you had to manage to squeeze all those cushions back into the shrunken. You're like somebody putting on your skinny jeans after a winter inside, and suddenly going, no, I can get these on still. I definitely don't need to go up a size.
Well, I had to. Okay, so there were some small victories there. You're right with the cushion covers. I got them on. But the major loss was could not get this big bench seat cushion on. And I had a wife who was already kind of annoyed with me at being so stupid. And so I I got very proactive. I immediately started searching custom-made cushion covers.
Did you search before this? Did you search if there's any way to re-stretch something like that?
Yeah, baby. I went to Thomas the Tank Edgin. It's like I really need something to stretch me out. What is going on? When did we turn into the horniest podcast in Australia?
But also at the same time, the least horny podcast in Australia, as you're literally a man describing that you've had a sore finger for 2 weeks because you couldn't get a cushion in a cushion cover. So, I mean, it does balance itself out, I think. We're wildly swinging around. But no, did you search, is there anything that once they're shrunk, are they shrunk forever? Is there no reanimating technology? Can you not stretch them out? Can you not put them in water again and hang them out in some way or stretch them out? Try to make the cushion cover bigger?
Conditioner apparently is the secret ingredient. If you've shrunk something, you soak it in with hair conditioner. You soak it for 5 minutes and then, I don't know, put it through a rinse wash or something like that. So
you just soak the whole thing in hair conditioner?
Yeah, that's right.
And do you think that works for...
Well, this is the thing. I saw that as a hack for T-shirts. Like if you pull a T-shirt out of the dryer and it's shrunk, apparently you soak it with conditioner and that will expand it again. Like it elasticizes the material or something like that. But these cushion covers are those kind of outdoorsy, rough, canvasy.
They're not made out of T-shirt material.
They're not cotton. Yeah.
No.
So I got on the front foot and was Googling custom made outdoor furniture cushions. And I was like putting a premium on mold proof because I'm like, well, if I can upsell this, I fucked that up.
You know what?
I've ordered some mold proof.
This is actually better because this is preventing future mold in this situation. Won't have to worry about washing it with hot or cold water because it's mold proof in the first place. Sorry, Mouldilocks, no visits from you on our mold proof sunbed. Yeah,
2 steps forward, 1 step back to go take 2 steps forward.
Yeah, that's good. That's a win. Yeah, I can see this.
So I found 2 prospective companies and I basically had 2 tabs open and I was you got to put in all the details to get your quotes. So I was like, well, I'll just fill in both and then I can compare the quotes side by side. And so one of the websites needed very specific measurements. So like not just like the length and the width. Oh, God, here we go again. The girth, not just the length and the width and the height, but they also wanted to know, okay, if it's a oval shaped bench seat, where does it start curving? How long is the curved section? So, and the other one was just kind of like, give us
the gist.
Yeah. And so, which is the cheaper option? Do you think? Will
give us the gist because they're cutting down on
which option do you think I took?
Because give us the gist. Like they are saving, they've cut out the middleman. Because you know what that middleman was? Like, he was bloody full of questions. He's always asking you, where does your thing curve in so that we can actually match the cover to the actual shape of the pillow you have,
so
all these pesky details. Whereas over at Gives of the Gist, they are just like straight to the point. I don't know, is it a circle or is it like a triangle shape or whatever?
Well, Jem was skeptical because we had a new cover made for our, we've got a window seat in the upstairs living area. And to get that made, I literally had to take the foam to this tailor in Brisbane and they had to measure it up and make sure it fits perfectly. So it looks good. So I was a bit suspect that there were 2 websites saying, hey, man, just give us the measurements. One basically saying, hey, just don't even give us the measurements. Just give us a roundabout idea of what you're talking about. Just drop a hint.
We reckon we can guess what you need, but you just point us in the right direction.
Yeah. So there was a significant price difference between the company that wanted detailed measurements and the company that was like just the gist. I went with just the gist though, because I was like, look, I mean, how hard can it be? Because, I've given them the length of it.
Yeah.
I've given them the width of it. I've given them the thickness of the material. Like it's an oval bench sheet. Like how hard can it be? Like
and I
sent them a photo as well.
Yeah. Of you.
Now, the other thing that is worth noting is that all the outdoor furniture has the same canvas covers. It's all this lovely white canvas covers. And so that was very important that
it matched.
So I was looking at both websites and they have all the, the color swatches. So you got your ivory bone, you've got your pure white, you've got your egg white, you can even go colored as well. Just the gist guys, it was sort of like your basic colors, sort of blue, black, white. The one where they wanted more details was probably a dozen options. But I was like, you know what? I don't need a dozen options. It's white.
No, it's white. I mean, surely there's not more than one shade of white.
Then as you start clicking through, so you give them all the measurements, you say what color you want, and then you sort of start picking the types of material you want. And now I've sold this to my wife as mold proof. And so I look at the one that wants all the details and they don't, they say, oh yeah, it's weather resistant, but they don't say mold proof. Whereas the other one was the Gist guys were man, you could fucking, you could wear this. You could wear one of these covers into battle.
Mate.
It will deflect radiation. It is unbreakable, made from titanium.
Cheaper better and you don't have to give us any details. Why would you go with the other mob? Like, we are across this, mate. We've got 3 colours. That's all the colours there are in the world. There's 3 shapes. We don't need measurements about where it curves in at the end. There's 3 shapes, 3 colours. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's bloody mold proof. We used to have a middleman here who told us we couldn't make outrageous claims like that, but we got rid of him and we're much happier here. Mold proof.
So just the gist, they give you 3. So you get to the last sort of page, and so you've picked you're giving them the details, the shape, the color, and now you're choosing which material. But it's 3 options. So it's like tier 1, your regular indoor material, boo. Tier 2, pretty good, pretty resistant stuff. Or tier 3, fucking hell, man, this is like the top tier. God himself could not weave a more resistant material than this. So I'm like, well, that's the one for me. So I click on Just the Gists, their godlike mold-resistant material. Send. Pay about $200. That's what it's going to cost.
Okay.
Oh, that's the other thing too, is because we've got guests coming. I wanted to make sure that the house looked nice by the time we had guests. So I paid the express, like the extra $30 or whatever to get it delivered in a week.
It was all that money that you saved, like from not having to answer all those pesky questions on the other website. So you can splash out on a little speedy mail.
So I send it off. I get an email confirmation. They're going to say it's going to take a week, which is great. A week arrives and there's no package delivered. I check the tracking and it's like, I can see it's in Australia. Like it made it to Australia, but it's just sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So I call the call center and just double check that it's still coming. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's still coming. And so they CC me in an email to the dispatch center saying, hey, we promised that it would get here within 6 days. This guy paid like the top courier. Can you make sure that it happens?
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Did you
sat there.
Did you just Google the courier company at this point just to make sure that the courier company actually existed? Like the mail?
Yeah, no, they're real.
It was all legit, right? Like
it was all legit. It was a proper trade. It was
at this point in this, I would have just at least been Googling to make sure that the business that I thought that I was talking to was a legitimate business.
Oh, no, they were definitely a legitimate bubusiness. They have all my credit card details, my logins.
Oh, well, I don't know why that definitely makes them a legitimate business.
It was sitting in dispatch for like 2 or 3 days, and I was getting a bit antsy because I'm like, well, what's the point of me paying this, premium if it's like may not
if it's just going to sit in dispatch anyway?
Exactly. And then I was contemplating driving to dispatch, but then they said, no, you can't do that. We don't let general public in here. So 3 or 4 days later, it arrives. So I'm not 100% happy, but it's fine. It's here now. I open it up. First thing I notice
is a perfect match. It is a perfect match. You can't believe that they have nailed it, but it is a perfect match for the color of the rest of the furniture.
It is a light brown tan color.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that is odd because I certainly did not want a light tan, brown tan color. I wanted white like the rest of my furniture. But let's just see if it fits first, because that's the big thing. It's a little big.
What?
Let's just say it's a little roomy.
Well, you know what you got to do? Wash that in some hot water. Sort yourself out.
Yes, that's right. But it is definitely mold resistant because whereas on the old cushion covers are a lovely, soft kind of white canvas material, this is made out of what appears to be plastic.
Yeah.
Like
that'll keep the mold away.
Coarse plastic, like old car tires melted down and repurposed plastic.
Ever seen a moldy car tire? Then you can't fucking argue with that.
I imagine you sit on a warm like summer's night, and the cushion would stick to you. The sweat's got nowhere to go. It kind of like counteracts the softness of the cushion filling inside because it's so like crispy on top.
It's beautiful that this is not moldy, but the fact that it feels like there's another Northern Rivers floods in the back of my pants is probably offsetting the appeal of not getting moldy furniture.
But you know what? It's passable. Like once you put the cover on and there is a bit of sag and you put it back on the bench, like you wouldn't notice. Like it would take a real kind of outdoor seating expert to realize that the cover wasn't a perfect match. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I just need to contact the company and let them know they sent me the wrong color. So I go to the website and I check my order. And the strangest thing happened, Will.
What?
So you know how I said the last 2 pages is like pick your color, and then the last one is pick your material, right? So I picked my color and I picked white. But what I failed to notice is that when you upgrade the materials, your color options change. And the only available option for the weather mold-proof material was tan brown.
Yeah, right.
So I had no recourse because in my head I'm like, I'll just have to go and let them know they've made a mistake. But then I look at the invoice and it's like, no, there is no other option. There is not. Like I could even argue there is a white mold-proof material because it just simply doesn't exist.
That's right. Even if you demanded it, they were like, yeah, well, that's great that you demanded that, but we literally don't have it. It doesn't exist. We cannot send it to you.
Yeah, it's
we've got heaps of stuff in white that'll mold immediately, though. If you're in the market for something that is white that will immediately get moldy, then we can sort you out.
Well, now the question is like, because look, it doesn't bother me, but I live with someone who likes to style her home, likes it to look a certain way, professional, not professional. What's the word? It's just she likes the house to hang together in a visual sense, and that means we don't have odd coloured covers on our outdoor furniture. So,
could it not be like a feature piece though? Like this is
what I was arguing
because feature walls or feature pieces are actually very like hip when it comes to styling now, which is this idea that there's something in the room that is counter narrative to like what the prevailing style is for everything else. So like you might have a black wall in the middle of a white room, or you might have like a piece of vintage furniture amongst like a, consistent like setting or whatever it is like that. Maybe that's what this is. This is like your furniture. You've got one, it is at least, it's not just one of the cushions from the regular couch, right? Because if one of them is different, then you really notice that. This is its own piece anyway. Maybe the idea is that, no, it's special that it's tan brown. Like it's a white person who spent a little bit of time, at the beach during summer.
Because the way the furniture looks, so it's a set, right? So you have 3, they're just like round seats, right? With round cushions and round cushion covers. Then you have like a couple of little sort of tables, and then you have the big couch, which is the oval shaped couch. So all the little round seats match, but the big daddy has a brown cushion cover made from a horribly uncomfortable weatherproof material.
All the little kids are gathered around going, you're not our real dad. We know it.
But I was saying to Jem, but, we can offset tan brown and white go together quite well. It's fun. Like, caramel ice cream, and we can just get some white cushions. She's away at the moment. So, look, she's going to have to live with whatever decision I've made. But I think I agree with you that I can pull it off if I knew anything about styling, which I do not. I do not, because I still have to cushion the what do you call them, like just the normal cushions that you put on the couch, because I also shrunk those as well. So I've got to work out whether I get like more weatherproof material for this, or if I just like cut my losses and just get regular cushions and just cushion covers and replace them more often.
I mean, I think regular cushion covers and replace them more often, but I mean, I tend to try to take cushions inside, like, from outside, even if they're on outdoor furniture.
Every night.
Well, yeah.
Or only when you've been sitting
outside.
I
sometimes I won't put them out if we're not using the outdoors. So, and like with the other stuff, I think, just turn it over more often is probably a better option. But like, I understand what you mean about the big cushion, though, that you can't just like be getting a new one of those all the time. It doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. Like, I reckon if Gemma has a problem with her, tell her she's racist. So you're fine with all the white furniture, but you don't like the brown furniture. Is that what you're saying? It's a weird position as an immigrant to take. Get on the offensive. Like, really, like, lean into the fact. I mean, we happily let you come to this country, marry a person from this country, become an Australian. I mean, come on. Like, and you're denying one slightly tanned cushion being in a house of white cushions?
I thought I knew you. I really thought I knew you. It's just, it's sad to discover this new side of your personality after 20 years.
I guess if that's the
I'll tell
message you want to send,
a racist.
that's the message you want to send your daughter, that you hate brown people, then I guess, yeah, really just go on the front foot about the whole thing.
And there's something else about living up here that I've noticed, and I don't know if this might be true of all, like in all cities or parts of Australia or whatever, but have you noticed everywhere up here, every shop has its own merch? Like every fucking cafe, every bakery, like it is the height of pretension, I think, for you to assume that people love your wares so much that they're going to want to buy a t-shirt and a hat. Like barbershops, cafes, restaurants, even like some retail, they all have their own merch up here. And I'm like, is it just because it's like a tourist destination?
100% why it is. They're not expecting that you are going to buy the hat from the local bakery. They're expecting some tourist who comes to town and has like the best week of their life and eats like a, fresh donut from that bakery. Is like, oh my God, I'm going to have to get like a hat from this bakery so I can remember this trip forever.
But I think they do it in cities as well. Like I'm sure, like I've seen it in barbershops and stuff where you can get like a t-shirt.
Look, we're a podcast and we have merch. Like we can't judge other people for like having merch.
But I think it's different. Like, why do you need a newsagent's hat?
Well, you don't. But why do you need a t-shirt from your favorite podcast? You don't need that either.
Because we create James Fosdyke creates new and interesting artwork that is, it's kind of should be seen and it should be out in the world. But like your small business that is selling like baked goods. Like what is the message you're getting across?
What's your hat? Like
with your crossed baguette logo.
What's your hat at the moment? What's on your hat? What is it a logo for? Is it just like a random logo, or do you know what that is for? It says RRL.
I'm going to be slammed with this. This is a Ralph Lauren trucker hat. This is that's a double
Ralph
RL
Lauren trucker hat.
Yeah, look. It's a long story. Do you want another story?
Has never been worn by an actual trucker. That's the one thing I can guarantee you about a trucker hat by Ralph Lauren.
Okay, so the other hat I have that's like this kind of color. It's a bit more beaten up and worn now.
Right.
It's got the double RL.
Yes.
It's got a white logo. People who watch the videos of this podcast would have seen it many a time. That is also a Ralph Lauren trucker hat. And both this one and that one are two of the most expensive hats I've ever bought. But it's actually when I was staying in LA at your place, probably in about 2018, that Ralph Lauren store was a couple of blocks from your flat in West Hollywood. I walked through it one day and I was like, Jesus, like I cannot afford anything in this store. We're talking like $3,000 jackets and, like $1,200 jeans and shit like that. And they were going through a bit of a 50s like biker kind of look at Ralph Lauren at that stage. So they have their more kind of blue collar, say blue collar in inverted commas, what is it? Yeah, double RL. So it's their more kind of blue collar kind of label. It's like their jeans and plaid shirts and
what does double RL stand for? Is it Ralph Lauren?
Yeah, something like Rugged Ralph Lauren. I don't know. I actually don't know.
This hat is by Rugged Ralph Lauren.
Well, let me just find out what does
RRL in the Ralph Lauren logo
does
rugged rural Ralph Lauren really realist
what is RRL?
Yeah.
RRL, pronounced double RL, is the iconic collection from Ralph Lauren that captures the genuine Southwestern style and vintage look. His idyllic Colorado ranch inspired these famous pieces. Okay, so that's what I mean. It's got a more of a blue collar. It's like in Zoolander, you got your derelict. This is like, his blue collar.
Yeah, I imagine his
Lorenz,
Colorado ranch.
$1,000.
His Colorado ranch is very blue collar, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like when Zoolander goes back to the coal mine, he's just perfectly made up. So when I was in that store and I was looking at all these things I couldn't afford, I saw this really cool 50 style red trucker hat. And it was the least expensive of all the things. And I thought it looked quite cool when I put it on. And I sort of was like, I probably paid, I think it was about $200 I paid for that hat. And I'm like, wow, that's an expensive hat, but I really like the way it looked. And, I don't ever spoil myself with clothes that much. So this will be my one, big purchase. That hat has lasted almost 6 years and I love it. Like, it is so durable. It's only just started to fray now, but it also helped me find what I believe is my current look. And that is white trash. I think I have sort of found this look that suits me.
That is absolutely true.
Like, I always say that it is Brad Pitt in California is my style icon. And I think that's, after years of experimenting with my look, I feel like, sleeveless tees, jeans, boots, trucker hats, stubble, I'm snorting and spitting on the ground and, being creepy around Juliette Lewis. That's my kind of vibe.
I mean, it's weird for Juliette Lewis that you've leaned this far into, your new look, but that's fine. I get it. And no, it works. I understand that. I've actually now that we're doing Hat Chat, our famous segment, Hat Chat.
Mike the Third, can we get a little sting here for Hat Chat?
Hat Chat. So I got a new hat as well. And, I was in Adelaide and my old hat.
Is that the new hat you're wearing now?
It's the new hat that I'm wearing right now. And so my previous hat. So basically one of the dogs really loves to chew a hat. And so you got to be very careful about where you leave the hat. And last time I caught the hat mid-chew and the little connectors, the plastic connectors at the back, they were barely holding on. Like, there was one of the little nipple things that was like the one that I need to hook it onto that was like hanging on by the barest of threads. But I was like, this is my only hat, until it actually bursts and it stops working. So midway through the Adelaide Fringe, it burst, and I was like, okay, well, I need to go and get another hat.
But what was that moment then it burst?
I was just walking down the street. It wasn't some big moment,
really?
But I was literally just walking down the street and my hat burst, and I was like, okay.
Did you fall to your knees and scream, I'm hit?
No, because I knew it was coming. It was one of those things like if you've had if you're a kid and you've got a loose tooth, or like if there's something like a scab or something that was about to go but isn't ready to go. Like, I knew that it was on its last legs. I knew it was that at some stage, I knew we weren't going to be able to save the patient. This was very much, let's just let them live a good life for the last moments they have here among us. So I was walking down Rundle Mall, remember it distinctly. It just pinged off. I felt it go.
So funny. I
knew exactly what it was, literally I was like, I knew this day would come, and now this day has come. So I handled it like I was like a Jason Bourne character, who's just got to an airport and has to dismantle the phone and then assume a new identity. If anybody had just been watching it, I was so calm in a situation that, how you said you would have really reacted. I was actually disarmingly the complete opposite to that, because something surprising happened that I suspected was going to happen. So I wasn't surprised by it. It was just a surprising thing that happened. And so it pops off. I immediately go, oh, that just happened. I'm in the middle of Rundle Mall in Adelaide. I take the hat off my head. I walk over to the nearest bin. I just put the hat in the bin, walk into a shop. First shop that was there that had hats, I went in and they were selling. So this is like an American baseball hat. And I don't follow any teams in the American baseball. So I literally was just like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I could get an American baseball hat. And I bought it, and it was not that expensive. It was $45 or something like that. And it is the most comfortable hat I have ever worn in my entire life. It's like one of those ones, it covered, you've gone the high hat, yours is a bit higher, right? At this, yeah. Whereas this one really,
it's not, yours is deeper.
Yeah, it comes down deeper, and it's it doesn't have, it just kind of fits your head really well. I feel hugged and protected when I'm wearing this hat in a way that I've never felt hugged and protected by a hat before.
Is it a starter hat? It looks less like when you what brand is it? I can see a label on the side there.
Okay.
or 41.
It's apparently it's genuine merchandise. That's what I will tell you. It's 47 brand.
47, yes. I think they do a lot of the sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It is.
But was there any, why LA? Do you feel like you still have a connection to the city because you lived there for so long? Was there some kind of affection?
Yeah, that was literally what I thought. I was like, I wanted a black hat. I was like,
Because that's a Dodgers hat, right?
Yeah, I imagine it's a Dodgers hat. That's what I would think it is. And so I wanted a black hat. It was my second time at Westworld, so I wanted to try a different experience. So I wanted to grab a black hat. But it was just the minute I tried it on, I was like, oh my God, this hat is so good that I might start following the Dodgers. I lived in LA for nearly 10 years and never watched a Dodgers game. But just based on the fact that I want to wear this hat and hats like this exclusively for the rest of my life, I might have to get on board.
Can I, while we're on the topic of sports, paraphernalia,
all right.
I mean, this is sort of like, look, it ties in nicely to our other podcast, Two Guys, One Cup, which is back, baby. Footy season is back.
Exclusive to the Listener app.
Every Tuesday. If you are overseas and you want to listen to it, the best way to do that is just to go to tofop.com and listen with a VPN because we put the feed up there every week as well. But a couple of years ago, the Saints had this training Guernsey, which was like an all-black training Guernsey with like a opaque large cross, like a hot cross bun cross that, went across the whole chest. And I just thought it looked really, really cool. And I remember thinking, I'm going to buy myself one of those. And I left it too late. And by the time I got to their merch store, the only sizes they had left was like small. So I ordered it way too small. Okay. I gave it away. And I just thought I will be able to locate another one. I've got contacts at the club, message them. Oh no. Yeah. We all they've gone. I'll check with the property steward. No, nothing there. Then I was like, okay, well, I'll just start searching online. I cannot find, it's like one of those movies where it's like, you dated this girl and then all of a sudden she disappears and no one has any memory of it. And you're like, but no one seems to know what I'm talking about. I can't think of the many different ways I've put a Google search in where I'm like Saints 2020, black charcoal gray, training Guernsey, large cross. And I'll be going through pages and pages of sort of AFL affiliated merch companies that have given me all these different training. And it's not the one I want, Will.
Did the club remember it existing though? They confirmed with you that it did exist.
Yeah,
you're not just misremembering.
No, it's not like a Mandela effect thing. And I can find photos of players wearing it if I wanted to, but very rare. It's almost like the internet has scrubbed. It's a New Balance product. So I'm thinking of contacting them to say, look, I know you don't make this anymore, but I want it. I used
They must love phone calls like that. That must be. They must get to work every day and hope that some disgruntled member of the public demands something they don't make anymore.
But it's weird. It's kind of that chased thing. Back when it was readily available, it's like, I'll get around to it. And then the minute it became unavailable, now it's become my white whale. I'm not a huge shopper. I don't buy myself a lot of things. Like Gemma always says, if we weren't together, I'd probably just be living in a cardboard box by the side of the road. And I think as long as I've got a Wi-Fi connection, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. As long as you can get KO.
Occasionally, I like to buy myself that. And this is one of these things. And so how do you reckon I'd do it? Do you reckon I'd just do a public appeal and say, hey, I'm quite prominent as a Saints supporter these days. So if I went to a Saints forum or whatever and was like, hey, dudes, I want the 2020 men's training Guernsey, medium size, let's start talking. I'm not asking for free. I'm happy to pay for it. Or do I go to the manufacturer and say, come on, guys, you must still have the template for this or some in a warehouse? My contacts at the footy club thought, there would be some in the property steward because it's training Guernseys. But even they said, oh, no, we can't find them anymore. And it's just the frustrating part is no one seems to know what I'm talking about, at least in a virtual sense. I haven't done the public appeal yet. What would you do?
I mean, I think
it's going to be secondhand is my best option now. There's no way I'm getting a new one.
I mean, I can't imagine that they're keeping them at the factory. I like your little idea that there's some room out the back of the factory where they keep them,
the archive,
in case it's sometimes
it's a museum dedicated to like previous Guernseys.
You may mock us now, but 3 years from now, we're going to receive a phone call from one guy, and he's going to want to buy one of these in medium. So it'll be worth keeping these boxes full of spares. I don't think that is likely. I think they're probably in landfill somewhere. The ones that weren't used at this point. The fact that the club doesn't have any copies, that's a bit more interesting to me, because I would have thought maybe they would have had some. Like you said, they're training ones, so you can't even really think that the players would have, you can't imagine players going, "Oh, I love this training jersey. I'm going to take this home and add it to my collection." So I think that you're probably right. It's going to be secondhand, and you're going to have to go to Saints supporters.
It's not on eBay. Like, I've searched eBay. I've been to a couple of vintage secondhand sporting apparel sites, because that's like a big thing now. It's mainly US sporting teams are the go, but there are some online stores that have some, vintage, more VFL era kind of Guernseys. But this is such a specific one, because it's not like it's not the game Guernsey. It's a training Guernsey. It's not quite old enough to be vintage. It sort of sits in this weird kind of netherworld. But I just sort of don't know. Like, what am I asking? Like, brand new, they're 120. Has the value gone up?
It's just so hard to tell. It's what is
secondhand.
What is it worth to you, I guess, is the question. Because I can't imagine that anybody's bought one of these and thought it was an investment, right? I can't imagine I can't imagine that anyone's sitting with it at home and thinking one day I'll be able to cash in on this. But at the same time, if you wander into a forum and you're suddenly like, I want this. If you have someone, you suddenly have the upper hand in that conversation, because they weren't thinking of getting rid of it. But if you offer them the right price, they might be happy to part with it. So I think that here's what I would suggest, honestly, is wait until a really bad loss by the Saints.
Yes, that's a great idea.
And then you go on the forums. This is your time. I feel like
I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for that this year too. So I'll have multiple bites of the cherry.
So immediately after a massive loss, you have to go straight to the forums and make your request, because you might get one for free in that environment. Like, people might be going, yes, you know what? If you come around, I've actually got 8 training jumpers for you. Please take them all.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. So, okay, I think what I'll do is I'll draft up just like a template kind of appeal, and after each loss,
have it ready to go. Exactly. Yeah. Only post it after the losses. Exactly.
And do I say that I'm willing to pay for it, or do you think just like, I might just don't bring that up yet. Just say, I'm looking for one of these Guernseys. DM me, if you can help me out.
I believe that's what you should say. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We should definitely be talking about this on our other podcast, but I think it's a nice little way to let people know that Two Guys, One Cup is back, as Will said, on the Listener app. New episodes every Tuesday. Well, we've got some mail here. We didn't manage to get round to much last week because we did such a deep dive on Chris Rock and time travel films. But this is from Billy, who says, hey, this is just a quick one, lads. Been listening for a long time, and I noticed a fair few episodes back that John Deeks' classic humorous MA warning script had changed. I think I've probably heard 2 or 3 versions over the years. What happened to the line about the priest, for example? Love the pod, guys. We have changed it. The times have changed. We've changed, and so we have tinkered with the warning and made it sort of as innocuous as possible.
Part of it was the tone of the podcast changed a bit from what it was obviously in the earlier episodes. But secondly, it was then that thing of a couple of people said, oh, we've been trying to recommend the podcast to people who actually we think would enjoy it. But the opening is a bit full on if if you're just dipping your toe in something for the first time. So, but really the major reason is that we just every now and again we do a refresh of stuff. So we'll do a refresh of the opening music and themes, or we'll do a refresh of the art that we put with the podcast. Like there's never much of a agenda behind any of it other than just us, changing the furniture around so it, feels a
And it's probably
bit
a good a time as any to mention that you'll probably notice some more changes coming over the next few months. We'll announce in good time. Nothing is changing with the shows or anything. They're all still going to be the same, but it's just more how we package the shows. We're thinking just ways we can streamline the way you get the shows, maybe sort of condensing a few things together, because we sort of have gone into this without a plan. And now we're working with an organization that like to plan things. And so they're kind of saying to us, hey, how do we make you guys more work more efficiently? And so,
hey, we love you, but your
like,
business structure is a nightmare. What are you doing?
Yes.
You guys don't even know what you're doing.
And so we want to bring Deeksy back into the fold. And so we have some plans to bring Deeksy back in to make more of our relationship with him, because we do love working with him and we haven't done a live show in ages. So you will hear changes, but like I said, we'll have more to say about that a bit later. This is an interesting one, Will. This is from someone who just calls themselves E. In regards to my
Entourage?
Yeah, it is. He said Turtle started his own tequila company. First-time writer, long-time listener. I'm writing in response to your invitation for mental health clinicians to comment, Charlie, on your exploration of a possible ADHD diagnosis. I heard you speak about it on both TOFOP with Will and FOFOP with Osher. I'm a registered psychiatric nurse who's been working public mental health for 5.5 years. I'm currently working in infant child youth team, and I've been doing a 2-year course on developmental psychiatry. Full disclosure, before doing this course, I too believed I had an ADHD diagnosis. You guys are absolutely right that TikTok has caused a massive surge in the number of people seeking this diagnosis. It's great that you're going to be assessed, Charlie, but I did notice you mentioned that ADHD doesn't have a functional impact on your life. In order to meet the criteria for a disorder, it must have a functional impact. This is why ADHD is typically not diagnosed in adulthood, because the impacts are usually so profound that kids with ADHD have poor outcomes, i.e. academic performance, school leaving, etc., etc. I also found it curious that you mentioned that your primary motivation for seeking diagnosis was so that hypothetically you'd be able to support Iona if she had the same difficulties. I wonder if this is better fits with an anxiety-related explanation rather than a neurodevelopmental disorder. Yeah, well, I actually saw my therapist a couple of weeks ago and told her the same thing. And she was a bit like, I don't know that I think your issues are more anxiety-related than ADHD.
Yeah, and it felt like when you were talking about it that absolutely your motivation, you kept coming back to this idea of, that your primary motivation was understanding it in case it was something that like genetically was going to, affect Iona in her life. And that to me, I'm not trained in like this at all, but just as an amateur person sounds like, yes, your anxiety about her and her, wellness and her health and, her development, which are all very natural things for a parent to worry about. But you're also a person who's always had anxiety. So the idea that you're manifesting some of that anxiety that you have about, Iona's health into your own health. It would not surprise me if that's part of it. I'm certainly not going to try and diagnose you. Like it's not my area or qualification to do anything like that. But that wouldn't be surprising.
I've been to enough websites that have diagnosed me. Well, we can do plenty of ADHD tests.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. It's fine as long as you went to the first thing that Google brought up. As long as you never went any further than that.
I think I'm a Scientologist now after the last website I went to. Psychiatric orders have a lot of overlapping symptoms. One non-psychiatric explanation could be worthwhile looking into is figuring out what your sensory profile is. So every one of us has a sensory preferences. Some people need lots of sensory input to achieve an optimal level of arousal. No, fellas, I'm not talking about the sexual kind, which is a very appropriate clarification on this episode, today's episode. For example, Will likes watching TV shows while working, while Charlie, if I recall correctly, can't listen to music with lyrics while working. Understanding how to modulate your environment for your sensory needs would support your concentration and focus. Well, that's interesting. I basically need to be in a sensory deprivation chamber to concentrate.
I think that in some ways most people do. As much as I've always talked about the idea of watching something else while I work, the truth of it is that the majority of my work, I'm in the middle of developing a new show at the moment. And I know that if I really want to do some work on it, I just have to turn everything off and concentrate. I can't have anything else because, most of the time when I'm doing something, like working and having something else on, it's researching or doing something where you don't have to have your full conversation. But I don't think we think that we're so capable of multitasking, but I think that we're really, really, really bad at it.
Yeah, I agree. Lastly, as someone who works primarily with adolescents having psychosis, I can assure you that the conversations on TOFOP are not tangential in a pathological sense, because you guys naturally build on conversations in a linear fashion and draw on your experiences to relate to each other in a conversational way. Anything else would be rigid and non-reciprocal, which would make for a pretty shite podcast. So there you go, Will. We do go off in tangents, but it is all related. It is not random.
Yeah, or you could be in a deep psychosis and I just enable you.
Yeah, or you don't exist. I've actually been doing this podcast on my own for 13 years. You're my Tyler Durden. AE finishes off by saying, can you please do a public service announcement for me? I would love for people to stop misusing the word psychotic when they mean psychopathic. This misuse of the word psychosis to describe people like Ted Bundy and Charles Manson contributes to stigma for so many young people. Well, that's good to know.
Is good to know.
That. I will attempt to use more accurate language. Thanks for the last over the years. As someone passionate about mental health, I hope my 2 cents has been helpful to someone.
It has.
I think that's really
very helpful.
Helpful to me. It makes me wonder if I should be laying down $400 to get this ADHD test when maybe, it's not really going to change anything. I'm a functional adult. I don't seem to have any lingering issues. Interesting, though, that both she and my psychologist both put it down to anxiety. My psychologist wasn't trying to dissuade me. She said, look, do what you want to do. But, in my experience, in my professional opinion, you don't strike me as someone with adult ADHD.
No, that's right. You do, but you've always had an underlying level of anxiety. And, if that anxiety manifests itself in the same way as ADHD does, it might be about changing those factors that contribute to the anxiety, and maybe the ADHD symptoms might dissipate. There is a way of you being able to test that as well, right? Which is concentrate, because there's no problem with trying to make yourself less anxious regardless. There's no net cost to the idea of making your life a little less anxious, and you see if that helps, I guess. Yeah.
Less anxious, less mold would help. Just less visits from Mouldilocks would take a lot of my daily anxiety out. If you want to support the show, please go to patreon.com. We're just about to record a bonus episode. We do one every 2 weeks. You get bonus TOFOP up there. There's also heaps of bonus material, full videos of the show, ad-free episodes, artwork from James Fosdyke. Quantum Cop incoming. I know I've been saying that for 2.5 years, but I swear to God, it's almost
I had
ready.
a great catch up with James Fosdyke when I was in Adelaide, and it's really lovely to hear both your and his perspective on the collaboration that you two have on Quantum Cop.
Why? What's he saying?
No, you know how and again, I only know pop culture news because I listen to the Weekly Planet, so I feel like I should at least give them a plug when I talk about this. But you know that Red Dwarf was originally written by two guys under the one moniker, right? So there was two guys, but they combined their names into one name. But now there's been some sort of falling out, and the settling of that is that they are now both going to be able to write Red Dwarf things, but by themselves. They both have the rights. They both can write their own Red Dwarf stories. They don't need to make sense with each other anymore. And I guess they can still use the same actors and whatever. So I think that's what I was, going
Well,
with.
what happened with this latest issue is that we were at loggerheads about what direction we wanted to go in. And in the end, if it was a tug of war, if it was a creative tug of war, I just let go of the rope because I'm like, James is very passionate about wanting to tell this story. So I was like, fine. So I think and he said the next one I'm going to throw to you to write most of, because with all previous episodes, it's probably been 50-50 input. But this one, James is like, I want to draw this. And you know what? It's probably for the best because I would not have conceived of having a panel that has hundreds of dicks rushing towards Jack. James Fosdyke is able to envision. I mean, it's a singular vision, Will.
Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is that's what Doug once said to Naylor. Just be careful.
And you've got shows.
Oh, yeah, I do. So my new tour is called Illuminate. It is, by the time you're hearing this, Canberra and Darwin are coming up very soon. Haven't been to Darwin for ages. So Canberra and Darwin will Illuminate. Then 2 weeks at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, Sydney Comedy Festival, Brisbane Comedy Festival, Townsville. And if you're in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales and you would like to see my improvised show, What You Talking About, Will, I do just I put shows on with about sort of 5 or 6 days of notice if I'm in town and I feel like doing a show. So when I'm recording this, we did one last night that literally we just put on sale 5 days before. And, so just kind of watch out for those if you would like to come and see one of those shows, because I never give them enough notice that I can ever plug them on the podcast, particularly when we're recording in the future. I'm like, there may have been shows, there may not be shows, who fucking knows, but keep your eye on the Brunswick Picture House. That would be cool.
And don't forget, you can find highlights of the show on YouTube at TOFOP TV. But for now, I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.